So this training is being recorded, and I'm glad to have you all here. I am Patricia Reiff. I'm a professor of physics and astronomy at Rice University, and I run courses for teachers. I run the Master of Science teaching program, and we offer 4 course sequences for teachers. One is the Earth and Solar System. One is general astronomy, stars and galaxies in the universe. And one is the physics of ham radio. You get your ham radio license and you learn about basic electronics and waves and space weather. And the 4th one is teaching astronomy lab. And all but that last one you can do completely remotely, which is fun. So we've been doing Zoom classes with teachers for a long time, and so if you're interested, if you're on the eTeacher list, I'll send you out a notice of the upcoming class. The class I'm doing right now is general astronomy. Okay, I'm muting Brittany. That happens. Okay, so let's get started. It says my internet connection. Yes, I see a chat from Vanessa. She says, it's good to see you after receiving all your great email messages. Yes, I have an e-teacher list that I've had for years, and I try to let people know about things in the sky, about NASA workshops, about trainings. And so if you are not already on my e-teacher list, I really recommend it. Also, anyone who takes the Space Update training this afternoon at 1 Central Time will get a free license for Space Update. So, and that's true of anybody who joins eTeachers during this crazy time. So, all right. So let's get started. Well, the neat thing about Stellarium is that it's open source and it's completely free. And so the cool thing about using Stellarium to teach students about the stars and the sky and celestial coordinates is you can teach it in your class and then they can download it and run it on their own laptops at home and do homework. And it's free for them, so it's a great resource. It's also cross-platform. It's Mac, PC, or Linux in the laptop version. Now there's also a smartphone version, which you do have to pay for. So I'm not doing the smartphone version. I'm only doing the laptop / desktop version. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning because you might as well. And there's some tricks and quirks. And once you've navigated the tricks and quirks, I'd like to be able to share them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download it. So I'm going to pull up my, now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and I am going to pull up my Firefox. And it's stellarium.org. STELLARIUM.org. Okay, so this is the home page of Stellarium, and you'll notice it's got several download buttons. So if you've got Linux, you choose one of these. If you have a Mac, you choose this one. If you have an old PC with 32-bit, you choose that one. And if you are a recent PC with 64-bit, you change this one. Beta, I wouldn't do right now unless you're helping them understand new issues. Let me pull up the chat window on this, on my other one, so that I can see if anybody does a chat. Okay, so the question is it okay to just run the Stellarium and not download anything? To tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't actually have ever used the Stellarium web version because I like to customize, and the web version you can't customize. But give it a try. I mean, I suppose we could try it. The other thing that's important if you're really going to be a user is this is the guide, and it's like 300 pages long. So it's really quite comprehensive and shows how everything works. So be sure to download that guide if you're going to use it very often. Okay. So at this point, I would click and download the Windows, and it'll tell you, what version it is right now is 0.20. Okay. So the first thing I would do before downloading is I would go to my existing version and check what version I have. Okay. And the software on a PC gets installed in your C drive under program files if you've done the 64-bit version. And here is the Stellarium, and I installed it on April 1st, so I do have the new version, but for the moment I'm going to call this, I'm just going to rename it, and it's it's a good idea to rename it, because in case the new download crashes, fails, you'll still have your old one there available to you. So that's where the program is. But all the configurations, the things that relate to what your settings, your location, your preferred look directions, is in your user file. And so there's two really important reasons why most computer programs now put your personal settings in your own user account, is that so that you don't have to be an administrator to run the program. You have to be an administrator to mess with the program, to install it or uninstall it, but you can have multiple users, and each of them might have their preferred configurations. So for example, you might have a user that's a teacher, and it'll be a flat screen user, and you might have a separate user that's a planetarium user that would either be a fisheye or a warped for mirror user. So all of those are options that are user specific. Okay, so then I'm going to show you where the user specific config files are. And again, this is something you want to back up before you do a major new installation. And it's in, if I go into my own user account, which for this machine is my Discovery Dome machine. My real laptop I use personally is my Mac, which is over there. So here are all the folders that are in my user account on the Windows machine. And you'll notice this one that's kind of gray, it's called App Data. And so when you open your user account, you may not see it because it is a hidden folder. So to make that hidden folder show up, you go to View, and you see this little check mark that says Hidden Icons. If you uncheck that, which is the default, you notice that app data disappears. So you check the hidden boxes, hidden items, and now this app data shows up. There's some other stuff that shows up too. Generally, if it's a hidden folder, they don't want you monkeying with it. So, you know, be aware. Okay, so now how do you find your Stellarium configuration? So you go to application data. It's in roaming of all things. And here is Stellarium. And here is the configuration file that I did on January 1st. But I'm going to, again, rename it to config save. So I won't be able to find it. It'll think I don't have a configuration file. And that way it will create a brand new config file when it starts the program. Always a good idea if there's been a new version to have it create a new configuration file instead of just using your old one. And the advantage of that is that sometimes when they create a new version, they actually create new values of the parameters. And if you use an old configuration file, you may not be using all of the strength and power of the new version. Okay, so before I install the new one, I rename this old one so it doesn't get lost. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to download from the web that 64-bit, and it will show up in your downloads. And so I'm not going to download it again because it will take bandwidth. I don't want to do the bandwidth here, but this here, if I click on here, it will oops, I don't want the beta. If I click on there, it will start the download and it will put it here in your downloads folder. And here is this Stellarium guide. So the brand new Stellarium guide is here. Okay. All right, so now let's install it. Remember, I renamed my old one so it doesn't think I have an old one there. So let's do the installation. So I'll double click on it, and because it's not an official Microsoft program, and this will happen to you a lot, do you really want this one to make changes? It'll even ask you before that, you know, this was not downloaded from the Microsoft store. Are you sure you want to run it? And you say, yes, yes. Okay. So select, but be careful. I mean, there's a reason Microsoft is trying to protect you from bogus apps that might, you know, harm your computer. So if you are not getting it from the Microsoft store, be sure you know who the author is so you don't get messed up. All right, so select a language. I'll say English, and I'll accept the agreement. And it will create a desktop icon for everybody. Here's where you might tell it that you definitely want to remove the main configuration file. It will normally leave it alone, which is good. It says remove the solar system file. I don't want to do that because I've actually added some material. But let me go ahead and remove the solar system file, and I'll tell you why, because I want to show you how to add something to the solar system file. All right, so I'm going to say install, and it really doesn't take long at all to do the installation. So as I said, it's creating the program specific information in the programs file. It's creating the user specific information in that app data Stellarium roaming folder. On a Mac, the program goes into the applications folder, and the user specific goes into the user library application support. And I'll show that to you for Mac users. All right, so there it is. Now I'm gonna leave this available here. I'm gonna close this. Oh, but before I do close it, there is a user forum which is very, very handy. There's a frequently asked questions. There's a wiki. If you have a question, if you want to something that doesn't seem to be right, first search the forum, and then usually you'll find an answer to your question. But if not, then you can post a question. You have to join in order to ask a question, but you don't have to join to search the existing questions. So scripts, there's a lot of people have made cool scripts, and these are all available. So here's get support, report bugs, request new features is there. All right. So let's get out of that. And now let's fire it up. And see, it says 0.20.0. Okay, so we're on the right version. All right, so this is how it starts up if you don't have a configuration file. It starts up in a flat landscape mode, and it starts up with the atmosphere on. Okay, so at this point, it depends on whether you are going to use it in a classroom in flat screen mode, in which case this is a good view, or if you're going to use it in a planetarium, which is a fisheye view. So we get out of full screen on my other computer here. Okay, checking that. This is the default daytime and flat screen. But if you're doing it in a planetarium, you might want the fisheye view, or you might want the mirror view, depending on what planetarium hardware that you use. But for a classroom, this is probably the view you want to use. Okay, so at this point, I start off with the students, and I said, here's the sky. How many stars do you see? And then, you kind of wait for the answer. And you say, and sometimes they'll say none, but the right kid will say one. And the star that we can see, of course, is the sun. And in Stellarium, anytime you click on an object, you'll notice it comes up with its information, and you can specify what information you want it to show on the screen. Because if you're doing this as a flat screen in front of your students, they're going to see all of this, which is fine. And you can increase the font size if you want them to see it. You can decrease the font size if you don't want them to notice it. If you're doing it in a mirror or in a fisheye, most often you can get this so they can't see it. It's kind of back behind them. All right. So if you click on an object, it selects it. You can right click to unselect it. You notice it makes a little four-pointed halo around it that says that it's been selected. So then I say, how come we don't see more than one star in the sky? And they'll give you answers. Do you want to give me an answer? Yeah, no, they may say, well, that's because the sun is so bright. Well, if you're on the space station, the sun is still bright, but if you're not looking the direction of the sun, you can still see stars looking the other direction. So it's not just the sun being bright, it's the atmosphere scattering sunlight. So one of the first things that I do is I say, one of the cool things about Stellarium is we can turn off the atmosphere by just hitting the A key. Bing. Now we can see what the sky would look like today, right here, if we didn't have an atmosphere. All right. Now, first thing you want to do with Stellarium is to set your location. There's a bunch of pullouts here on the left and a bunch of pullouts here on the right, on the bottom. And each of those turns on and off different features. And then if you tell it to save, then it writes your preferences onto that config file. All right, so let's do it. The very first thing you want to do is set the location window. And so let's say I was in Dallas. I'd start typing Dallas and click on it, and there we are. We're in Dallas, okay? But maybe I want to go to Fairbanks, Alaska. Boom. There I am in Fairbanks, Alaska. Okay, so you can specify where you are either by typing it in, okay? But say you're in, you know, another town and that's not on this list, you can also put it in by latitude and longitude. Or if your laptop has a GPS, you can actually have it get it from the GPS. But I'm in Houston, so I'm going to go back to Houston. And I am going to say, use current location as default. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. Is you want to use the location as default so that the next time you open it up, it will put you in your right place. Okay. Now the next thing is date and time. It defaults to your system time. But if you wanted to jump ahead to 2024, April 8th, okay, and then let's go to a different location. Let's go to Dallas again. Okay, so here's April 8th, 2024 in Dallas. And we are going to zoom in on the sun. And to zoom in, the easiest way to zoom in is to use the /up, which is the one underneath the question mark. So the /up underneath the question mark, okay, that will zoom in. All right, and now let's make time go a little faster. And the way to make time go faster is to hit the L key. And each time you hit the L key, it speeds up time a little bit more. And you'll see the time changing here. And look what's going to happen 4 years from today. Okay, and when I hit the K key, it goes back to real time. So L means speed up, and then each time I hit L, it'll speed up even more. You really don't want to hit L more than about 3 times or it'll go berserk, okay? And then to go back to real time, you hit K. So let's back up a little bit. So to back up in time, you hit the J key. And again, if you hit it again, it will go a little bit faster backwards. So I want to see exactly what time the eclipse is going to start in Dallas. Okay, I'm gonna make it go a little bit faster. Okay, I'm just now gonna slow it down. Okay, so here is first contact, and Dallas will be at 12:23 local time on April 8th of 2024. And since the default is to not expand the moon, it has an option where you can make the moon larger, which is nice if you're doing the phases of the moon. But if you're trying to do an eclipse in real time, then you want to have the moon normal size. All right, so I'm going to hit L and make us go a little bit faster here. So here is the eclipse progressing. And of course, you can't see the corona of the sun until it's total. And depending on where it put Dallas, it may actually not go total at this location, but it's going to be close. Okay, so we're getting ready to do third contact. Here's Bailey's beads as it's almost going into totality. And so we're going to, in Dallas, have totality at about 1340 in the afternoon. And boy, you can see the Bailey's beads here really well. So, you know, the exact location of the Bailey's beads is not going to be exactly the same because it's an idealized one. And now, boom, it's fully total. And this, again, accurately gives you in real time the length of time it will be total. And again, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. And it will accurately give you, you know, when you're going to come out of the eclipse as well. So what I could do is actually I could have it remember my keystrokes and create a script. And it will put me in the right place and the right timing and get the eclipse. And the neat thing about this script is you can do the script with timing but without location, so that it will show you what the eclipse will look like at your location as opposed to in Dallas. And now here's third contact where the sun is coming out. And then I'm going to speed this up again. We're going to go all the way to fourth contact. So the neat thing is, you know, Stellarium can be used, and I hope everybody does use it for the upcoming solar eclipse, wherever you are, whether it's partial or total in this case. All right, now to get back to today, you hit the number 8, bing, and it brings you back to today. And if you want to zoom back out, you hit the /down key, which is right above enter, and that unzooms you. Okay, so now this is back to what the sun looks like right here, right now. We've got Mercury on this side, and we have Venus, who's just passed through the Pleiades over the last few days. So I want to show how that works. So let's center on Venus. If you hit the space bar, it puts it in the center of your field of view. Okay. Now to zoom in, I could use that /up. But that's going to zoom me in kind of far. It shows that it's about a half full right now. And one of the cool things I do with Venus is the phases of Venus, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and there's 2 ways you can zoom out. One is to use 2 fingers on your trackpad, or you can use the page up, page down button. So each time it's jumping, I'm using the page down and zooming out a little bit, because I want to show you what Venus has been up to. Now, I want to go backwards in time, 1 day at a time. Uses the minus key. Really easy to remember. So minus goes backwards 1 day. So here's where we are today on the 8th, the 7th, the 6th, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd. And see, now you see see Merope up here? We are actually have Venus in the Pleiades right now. So I'm going to zoom back out again a little bit more. So you can see Venus in the middle of the 7 sisters. It makes a little tiny dipper. And that was on the 3rd. Now, unfortunately, in Houston, we have been socked out cloudy for every evening in the last 3 weeks, except last night. We had a slightly clear, but it was too fast. Okay, so you can now go forward a day, and going forward a day is the equals. You would think the plus, but plus is a shift, so it's just the equal sign. And so it was best on the 3rd. You can see the date at the bottom. The next day, the 4th, and the next day, the 5th, that was clearing it. Okay, so 8 brings us back to today. And I want to go back to zoom in on Venus, so I'll use the /up key. And this now shows us what Venus looks like right now through its small telescope, okay? And so I asked the students, what phase is Venus right now? And they'll say, well, it's a little less than half full. I said, okay, so we call that crescent. All right, crescent means it's less than half full, whereas gibbous means it's more than half full. So then I asked the next question, is it getting bigger or is it getting smaller? Is it a waning crescent that the crescent's going to get narrower and narrower, or is it a waxing crescent where the amount illuminated is going to get bigger and bigger? And again, wait for them to answer the question. And so we say, let's check it out. So now I use that same forwards button, which is the equals. But now instead of just hitting it once, bang, there's tomorrow, bang, there's the 10th, I press and hold it. And this will jump forward a day at a time, okay? So now here's what Venus looks like on May the 14th. And it's very, very, very narrow crescent, okay? And I'll keep hitting equals, 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 equals. And you see it's getting more and more time like new, okay? But what else is happening? What else do you notice about Venus? It appears to be getting larger. Well, is it getting larger because it's really growing? Why is it getting larger? Because it's getting closer, okay? And that's the neat thing about Stellarium. I can go over here to my information, okay? And so it'll say the part illuminated is only 6.7%. And here's the distance from Earth is 0.318 astronomical units. So it's really, really close to Earth. And the fact that it's dark means it's between us and the sun, okay? And because it's close, then it's really, really large. And I'm gonna hold the equal sign again. And you notice it went through full and now it's back to crescent, but now it is a waxing crescent. Keep going. And now it's just about half full. You can play around with it. Oops, I missed it a little bit. See, you can have illuminated. Let's go back to 50%. Is this August 13th, it will be half full. So that's, which would be first quarter Venus, because it's waxing half full. All right, and let's keep pressing the plus, the equal sign to make it go ahead in time until we got nearly full. And I'm looking at the illumination on the left. 91.2, 99.6. There we go. Now it says it's 100% illuminated. So now we have full Venus, okay? But you notice how much smaller it is. And the reason that it's smaller is that it's farther away. So go back to see the distance from the Earth is 1.72 AU. So it's the distance to the sun plus 0.7, where it was the distance from the sun minus 0.7. So that's a huge ratio in distances. And that is really how Galileo was able to prove that at least Venus goes around the sun. It doesn't go around us, it goes around the sun because it has phases and because it changes apparent size. All right, so slash down gets out of, zoom backs out. And you notice it's almost in the same direction in the sky as the sun. And that means it's at superior conjunction. It's on the far side of the sun. Whereas when it was back in August 13th of 2020, it was between us and the sun. So this is superior conjunction is 2021, March 22. So it's almost a full year from now, Venus will be full. And then keep coming, it will become an evening star again. And it will be back in the beautiful evening sky again in the fall of summer and fall of 2021. Okay, so let's go back to today, hit 8. And I gave you the link to my cheat sheet, or to my favorite ones, but you can also get them right here. See this question mark, which means help window? This now gives you all the cheat sheet codes. So like set time to now is 8, okay? Subtract 1 sidereal day is an alt plus a minus, and add 1 sidereal day is an alt plus a equals. Decreased time speed is a J, increased time speed is an L. So all of these things I've already shown you. So here they are in case you don't have your cheat sheet in front of you. But I tried to make the cheat sheet so it all fit in one page. All right. So we are back to today. Let's say I like to have my standard field of view might be, looking west, because I like to see what's in the evening sky when I first come up. I might want to have my default to change the landscape, okay? So this landscape, the one that default that comes with it is Guerin's, but you can put yourself on the moon. Unfortunately, putting yourself on the moon, it has a pretty high mountains, and so you don't get a good clear horizon. You can put yourself on Saturn, with fuzzies. I like to put myself in the ocean because that gives me a nice, dark, flat horizon. Now, that's kind of unfair because you can't always see things that are really close to the horizon because there's trees or buildings or whatnot, but it gives you the optimal view. So that's one of the ways I like to remember it. Okay, so once you've got this set up all the way you want, and there's all sorts of options. You can turn on more star labels or fewer. Okay, so you want some of the star labels, but you don't want to go crazy on it. You can turn up and down the twinkle. Twinkle only works if you have the atmosphere turned off. The atmosphere turned on. You can increase the brightness of the Milky Way, just so that it makes it easier to show where the Milky Way is, okay? You can turn on more labels of solar system objects if you want to show Uranus and Neptune. Oops, I didn't mean to hit You can show the trails and the orbits. You can turn on deep space objects. So if you want to do Messier objects, you can slide this and see more objects. You can see all these grids. So if you want to turn on the equatorial grid, you see there is the celestial coordinates, but it's kind of a light blue and it's a little hard to see. So you can turn on the equatorial grid of dates, a little easier to see. But if you've got a low quality projector or people with hard to see, you can increase the line thickness. Okay, well, 3 is, you know, probably a little too much, but you see how much easier that is now to see if I increase that. And similarly, the altitude azimuth grid, you can turn that on and off. The ecliptic line, you can turn that on and off. So there it is. So you can change the color and you can change the thickness. Now, all of those you can also turn on and off down here. So you can turn on and off the planet labels. You can turn on and off the cardinal points. You can turn on the equatorial grid or the alt-azimuth grid. Okay. You can turn on and off the constellation lines and the constellation labels and the constellation art. So the artwork that goes along with this. And these are easier to see if you zoom out a little bit. And again, page down is zoom out and page up is zoom in. So if you get to a field of view of exactly 180, then you are exactly the full sky. Okay. You can also zoom in or zoom out by using the roller on your mouse. All right. And if I do Control-Alt-1, it goes directly to 180 field of view, which is nice because then you don't have to twiddle with it. All right, so this is what the full sky view would be right now, right here. And here in the morning sky is Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. Really beautiful in the morning sky. All right, so I'm going to turn off the constellation art, which is R for art. Okay. So now I want to save this. This is the way I want to start off. So I go to sky. No, don't want to do that one. I want to go to configuration window. And now I say save the view and save the settings. So that writes for me the configuration file with these configurations set up so that now when I quit Stellarium, I'll do Control Q to quit. All right. Now I restart Stellarium. And there we are again. Although I'm not quite sure why I didn't get the ocean back. That's interesting. Okay, So we're back, and I'm not quite sure why it didn't save my landscape either. Save views, save settings. Sometimes when they do a new version, some things break. All right, so let's quit it again, Control Q. All right, now I want to show you where it has saved that config file. So I go back to my PC and I go back to my app data, and I actually make a shortcut for app data on the shortcut folder just because it's easy to find. So app data, roaming, Stellarium, and here's this config file. So here's the config file that it just now wrote. Now the interesting thing about the config file is it is a text file, and like a text file, you can edit it, which is very, very handy. So everything that we did by settings, you can also do by editing this file, but you know, be careful, it's possible to screw it up. So if you get really bad and you screw it up, be sure to save it first, back it up, copy it to a different location, then practice editing it, and then restart it and see if it looks like what you want. So there's all sorts of configurations in Stellarium, and most of them, you know, you can do directly from that. But I want to show you a few of them. So here's that line thickness that we set. It went up to 2, like we told it to. And here's where the screen width and the screen height. This is something you might want to change because it'll give you a little better resolution. So change this to whatever your projector is. All right, so I want to change that to 1920 by 1080. Again, there's constellation boundaries thickness. That is, I find really dim, so I changed that to a 2. And asterism and line thickness, I want to change that. So different things here you can edit. Now the mirror, if you want to use mirror, you put it here, but again, don't mess with that if you don't want it. Here is whether the stars are twinkling and how much they're twinkling. So there's a ton of things you can play around with, okay? But as I said, most of the ones you use typically are going to be ones that are on the screen itself. Okay. Yeah, see, for some reason, it didn't change the landscape name to ocean, which is weird. I'm not sure why it didn't re-edit that. All right, so let's save that. And now let's reopen it. You notice I'm back to the ocean. Okay, and now I want to do the constellation boundaries, which is B. Okay, so now my constellation boundaries are a little bit brighter because I told them line thickness of 2, whereas if I just told them line thickness of 1, they didn't do as well. But there are things you can do to adjust that. Somebody is sending a question. I don't see the new chat question over here. Okay, don't see it. Oh, maybe. Okay. All right, so now I want to show you a couple of things that you might want to do that are different. All right, and that is, I like to, I want to add Comet Atlas. Okay, so I'm going to go into my configuration window, and I'm going to go to Tools. No, I want to go to, that's another one to do it. But I want to do plugins. So these are all plugins that you can turn on or turn off. And I'm going to do Solar System Editor. And you'll notice that this says load at startup. That's really important. If that's not checked, then check it and then restart it. And it will then be saved as load as startup. Now, so we're going to say configure. And we're going to import, new object. So import object. And I'm going to look at a comet. And I'm going to go to their comet list, which is MPC's list of observable comets. And get orbital elements. All right. So this is the name of the new one, and I've already imported it, so it's still showing it. But this is what we want to add. C, and you have to do it exactly like this. C/219Y4 Atlas. You just say Comet Atlas, there's dozens of them because Atlas is a survey, okay? So like here's P 2019 Catalina. Here's Comet 2019 Y1 Atlas, okay? So you're not gonna see Y4 on my list because I've already imported it, but we'll just bring in Y1. But what you'll wanna do is to look for C/2019 Y4 Atlas and do add object. Okay, and now we'll close it. All right, and now we'll go to our search window. And in our search window, we can search for anything we want. So Venus, and it'll automatically find it and center it. And let's do now Comet Atlas. And so we do C/2019. You notice there's several here that are Comets 2019 that are already on my list. And you have to type it in exactly as it is here. Y4. Now, why they don't allow you just to select it from that list is one of those things that I think I'm going to suggest. Because you should be able to just go click here. Yeah, that's the one. But right now you can't do that. All right. So I typed it in exactly right, and I'll say, go find it. And since I added it, you know, there we are. And it's right here. And it's near the North Star. It's circumpolar for us in Houston. So it's up all night long. And that makes it, so let's go to the evening. Bing, okay, so this is 2056, about 9 p.m. And this is now the finder chart to find Comet Atlas. So if you've got a good clear night and a good pair of binoculars, start looking now, because it's going to be at best a binocular object in about 2 weeks. So, and already people are getting really good pictures of it. So that's how to add it to your system so that you can use this as a finder chart. Okay, one last thing that I like to do is I like to put in the color constellations instead of the black and white constellations. All right, so I'm going to quit it again. Now I'm going to be actually changing the program itself. So I gave you the link to download the Western color constellations, and I downloaded it. It's called western.zip, and you have to extract all. So when you do extract all, then it will create a folder just called Western. And now here is Stellarium Western Color Art. So we're going to open up that folder, and wow, look, color pictures of all the constellations. Now we're going to replace the ones that are presently in my space update. I mean my Stellarium. So I'll go to C, Program Files, and looky here. Here's the new Stellarium. I hate it when it makes it go full screen. And you go to Sky Cultures, and you go to Western. And if I look at them as small icons, you'll see that they're all gray. Okay, so I'll come over here. I'll do Control A to select them all. I'll do Control C to copy them all. I'll go back into this folder, which is in my Stellarium program files, okay? And I will paste them. And it says, hey, I already have those ones. I say, yep, replace them. And do these for all. And again, it takes administrator to change your program folder. So if you're not administrator, you would be able to do this. But there we go. All right, so now if I reload Stellarium, and now I hit R for constellation art. Ta-da! We have color constellations. So those are the two biggest fixes that I like to do, you know, basically immediately to make it prettier. But you know, that's really strictly up to you. But constellation colors, constellation line thicknesses, all of those make it easier for people to see when you're in a classroom. Because I think they're typically a little bit dim because I think they were written really for people with smaller projectors that only had 1024 by 768. But now that most projectors are high def, then I like to increase the line thickness on almost all of these. So turn off the art. Now you can also add what things show down here if you want to add more buttons. If you want to do the art constellation boundaries as a button, you can actually go and set it as a button. Okay. All right. So there's some activities, basic activities, and I sent you all a link to that that are on my So if I go to space.rice.edu, that's my outreach web page, and you can go to my courses for teachers here, and the Master of Science Teaching program is here. I also have animations on eclipses. I have animations on Apollo. I have outreach program with NASA. So if you go to my MST program, and here are my classes. So here's the class I'm teaching now, Astronomy for Teachers. And if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll give you the homework. So here's my first activity I do with the teachers is to get them to learn Stellarium. So there's the shortcut list, and you know, teaching them basically how to operate it. It also shows them how to find out what constellation is in the sun is on your birthday, blah blah blah. So this is just a sample, but there's lots of possible things you can do. And I have another one on Astronomy 502. Okay, so these are, but if you look at that 380 page Stellarium booklet you can download, and then there's tons of activities, there's tons of scripts. And there's a lot that you can do. So this is just kind of get you started, but it's really an amazing tool. Now, do I have any questions, or would anybody like for me to show you quickly where things are on a Mac? Any questions? Any options?
Sanders is out. Sanders is out.
Sanders?
Bernie.
So the no questions? Would anybody like to see it on a Mac? I can show that to you real fast. So in case anybody does want to run this on a Mac, I'll show you where everything is on a Mac just for fun. So I'm going to come back over to my Mac here and share the screen over here. All right. And this is where you've all signed up. So on a Mac, there's two applications folders. One is your general application folders, and one that's your personal application folder. So it's in the general application folder, and it is just called Stellarium.app. Okay, and that will run it. Now, if I want to change that Western art, I have to show the package contents. So I right click on it and do show package contents. Again, this is true for anybody who has a Mac program. So there are resources, sky cultures, Western, and here are those gray Western constellations. So you can just replace all of those with the color ones if you want. So that's how you find the things in the program itself. And then to find your personal config file, you go to your personal folder, to your own library, application support, and scroll down to Stellarium. And here's your config file. Okay, so that's where the config files are. And you notice I have a lot of saved config files for when I went to various places. But so you can back up your config files, in this folder and then just pull them out. But I always like to have a backup so that in case I get a new version and I want to save it. Okay, so that's where it is on a Mac. But as far as operation, it runs essentially exactly the same. The keystrokes are just a few of the keystrokes. You can use Command instead of Control, but other than that, they're pretty. Okay, so any other questions? All right, I'm going to be doing a space update training at 1 o'clock this afternoon, so feel free to join us. It's a software that's really cool, and I use it in the classroom all the time. And we're giving out free licenses for anybody who takes the training. So same place at 1 o'clock. So come and join us if you want. And I really appreciate you being online with me.